Hello. Welcome to the 126th episode of my podcast, Currency. I have tried to record this episode a few times recently, but then I was having some trouble with my phone, and now is a new day I'm recording it, so I have different energy today than I had before. And, I feel like I had better energy yesterday. And by better, I mean more of it. Better energy, I mean more of that energy. You're going to see that there's Rocket League being played. That's because I played Rocket League on my Twitch, and I'm taking this separate video of me recording myself talking. I'm not playing while talking, just because it's easier for me to record it separately. But Rocket League is being played as anyway, so that you have something to look at besides just me. Besides just me, the person talking. Tension is better than attention. And identities. Tension is better than... These are a couple of the things that I'm going to be talking about today. Or at least this is what I imagine that I would be talking about. Tension and attention. Because it's just like the world of tension is hidden. In the world of attention, tension is quieted too easily. Or maybe it's just the world is trying to forego its primitive past. That is often the fight that goes on in the world, is between people who want primitivity and then people who want to move on from that. The Protestant Christians are big advocates for moving away from primitivity. I mean, it goes hand in hand with like believing in creation. Not that all Protestants believe in creation. Most of them do, though. I wonder to what extent. It's like, for me, the matter of evolution versus creation is just a non sequitur. Like, it has to be evolution for me, but I'm only, as far as I understand it, I'm only Christian as long as I believe that creation was the way that we started. But so I don't know how a lot of Protestant Christians would say what they'd say about evolution versus creation. It's just that creation is very, it's a lot more simplistic than evolution, where both of them are theories. Neither of them are like, this is fact. It's just that evolution is a relatively better theory, in my opinion, but it's just the act of accepting relativity at all is what you'd have to do to get into a position where you believed evolution. It's relativity is the thing that Christians don't want to accept, but like evolution is very relativistic theory, because it's talking about how different species are all relatively true or relatively intelligent, basically. Because evolution would describe it as that animals are smart the way that humans are. It's just they're relatively less smart because they're relatively less developed and less dominant. But besides that, the reason I'm saying this, because I wanted to make the point about, like, Charles Darwin brought evolution, and that's a no-go for Christianity, especially like when the theory is first proposed. Just flies in the face of the biblical narrative, which is essentially the narrative that runs the world. And that's why I'm saying that's what the fight is always. The fight, really, probably the most important fight, in my opinion, in the world is that between Christians and non-Christians. But it's like the biblical narrative runs the world, even though Christians wouldn't admit that. They are kind of playing the victim. They're kind of playing they're playing their cards close to the vest. They're trying to underperform, but then like not raise expectations so high, but really the expectation should be very high for Christianity, because they have the most money and the most people of any religion in the world, and basically any people group in the world. I mean, money holders is probably has the most money of any people group in the world. To be concise, I have words. I have words that I relate to each other. One word related to the other. I'm like, this word is related to this one, and that's what I have to bring to you. Is that I utilize freedom of speech. The fact that words are free across the English language. People are like, nothing in life is free. Well, you can use any word in the dictionary, any English word you want. There's millions of them, and they help you do things. But I think an important part of life is just like separating one word from another, or finding how one word is related to another. But what I wanted to say is that what Charles Darwin did with the theory of evolution is something he did to change the narrative of how we began. And then Einstein came along and he did something similar. But like, his theory of relativity also flies in the face of Christianity. That's what I wanted to say. Einstein is just as bad as Darwin as far as Christians are concerned. It's that detracting of a message. Einstein's message is just as detracting from Christianity as Darwin's, because the advent of what Einstein did, his contribution is that he's like, relativity is real, and evolution was sort of already getting at that, but Einstein is like, relativity is the way it is. That's relative truths, relative time is relative, is basically, if you could summarize what his position in life was, it's like, time is relative. And people didn't know that before. But accepting that theories of general relativity and special relativity, that time is relative, would, if you're doing it correctly, would like destroy your belief in Jesus. Your reason follow Jesus because Christians make it that it's one thing, and that it's not relativistic. That there's only one timeline, and it's Christ's. And time is not relative. It's just one thing. They make it that way by saying they're over all of it. Does a Christian, somebody who says that they've achieved everlasting life and has authority over infinite time, has authority over infinity? Somebody who's saying that is somebody who's trying to make time one simple thing, one identity, one image, where it's like, that's the very last thing that you should ever be describing as an image, because of course time is relative. No two planets have the same like time frame, but it's like there are infinite timelines, infinite time frames, and a time frame is essentially just a frame of reference for any one person. Like, what you see in front of you is a finite frame of reference because you're finite limited in your eyesight, and what you see in front of you is just like it's a frame of reference relative to other people's frames of reference. It's not the best one. It's not necessarily grand in scale. It could be. It's just time frames are finite and relative, and I bring up frames of reference, your field of vision. Like, you can only see so much. It's finite, but there's a lot of shit beyond that. But I'm just saying that time is relative, truth is relative, is like one of the hardest things for Christians to accept. It has to do with, from what I gather, it seems like Christians want it to be the truth is one thing, Truth is one thing. Time is, they kind of end up doing that about a lot of stuff. Time is one thing, and your identity is one thing. Christians, and it goes hand in hand with an authoritarian world that is like, the world needs to be run by authority. You can't cross authorities. You can't speak about medicine if you're not a doctor. And that world is making it that the people that are doctors are like, that's your one identity. They try to make them that's what they are forever. Whoever they are as a person, it's like, people want to make it that the identity supersedes the human. Like, the title of doctor supersedes the title of what their name is. That's how much people like identities. That's how much people push the guise of authoritarianism. But it's just I'm talking about a world that advocates for singular identities. They want to make it that like the doctor is the doctor, and so you can't be any sort of a doctor on your own. You couldn't relatively understand it even enough to speak on it. You don't even get to talk. I say, let's take that idea to its fullest extent. Like if you've never ridden a Clydesdale, don't even say Clydesdale, like you're speaking out of turn. Why doesn't it work like that? It's because, sorry, some things in life are free. The English language, too bad that all of the English words are at everybody's disposal. So everybody has the ability to speak on everything that they don't have authority over all the time. And that's how language works. And it's supposed to work that way. Is that anytime you're talking, you're infringing on somebody else's authority just because you're using words that... So, like, I'm saying it would be ridiculous if they're asking everybody to, like, make sure every word out of your mouth is something you've experienced before, because that's not the way that it works, and that's not the way that it ever works. And so, like, I think you gotta take doctors out of hospitals. Let's have a mass murder of doctors. Is that okay to say? Just asking. I'm asking my colleagues that are in the room. Is that all right? They said yeah. My team got together. They're like, yes, say it. Do it. Seriously, say it. Do it, Tracy. Say that doctors aren't real. I'm like, yeah. That's what I feel like when I post something on Twitter, on X. When I'm about to reply something, I'm like, ooh, you're bad. Do it, Tracy. See what happens. Who even cares? I'm like, oh, I don't even care. I'm gonna say it. I'm like, that's what it feels like, because everything that you post is like worthless. But it's also everything at the same time. It's also completely worthy, because there's no reason for me to say anything on Twitter, contribute anything. The only obligation that I have is to kill myself. That's what I had to do today. But I didn't do that, and now we're still here, and so you're welcome for me saying whatever it is that I said, because I didn't kill myself. That's what was on the docket. I already didn't do that. That was the only thing I had to do for you. People want me to do something for them. Or people want, like, I hang out with them. I mean, not necessarily, but it's just like, maybe that's implied for everybody. Everybody should be doing something. People want me to do something for them, like, maybe because I speak ambitiously, aspirationally. People are like, you gotta... I mean, I need to do more. I want myself to do more things for myself. Maybe this is just me getting back at myself. Like, I don't have to do anything for you, myself. The only obligation I had was to kill myself. You know? Other than that, if I just say 2 words, like, congratulations for listening to me. Because here it was this morning, I had the chance to kill myself, I didn't do it. They're like, are you getting suicidal? I was on stage and... Hey, are you getting suicidal over there? I was on stage and I've admitted to people, like, I'm schizophrenic. And that's not an admission, that's just my beliefs. That's just part of my belief system. I believe that people should say that they're schizophrenic, and they should be rewarded for that. I mean, it should be celebrated, honestly. Schizophrenia should be celebrated. It shouldn't be... like, oh, wow, you have a disease. It's not like that. Schizophrenia should be, I'm just saying, people are different personalities for different groups of people in different places. For different environments, people are different identities. Of course I'm schizophrenic. Of course I have different personalities in different places. And think of how much it's hated on, or it's like, spoken of so negatively. It's nothing but criticized. Being different people in different places. I know it's slightly different. That's different identities, slightly different than different personalities. That's what I'm saying. different persons, that's everyone. Everyone is a different person in different is multi-personalitied. You mean every person on the earth? And so the problem is that the only time people bring up the word schizophrenia, they're speaking of it negatively. And that's when a problem does exist, is when for some reason everybody has decided to only speak of it in negative terms when positive exists right alongside it. It's just that nobody's utilizing that territory of it. People aren't like exploiting the positive side of it. They're exploiting the negative side of it for financial gain. I mean, the term comes along and it's like schizophrenia. It's not necessarily anybody's fault. It's just kind of a misunderstanding of schizophrenia, where it's like we didn't know the term at all, and the first time anybody's mapping the territory of it, it's like people are exploiting the negative sides of it for financial gain, because that's all we know about it, is that it's bad or whatever. And so that's why I'm here, is to advocate for more schizophrenia. I'm like, people say the word more, have it be out in the open. It shouldn't be a secret. It shouldn't be a secret because, of course I'm different personalities. It's not a bad thing. But then people make it paranoid schizophrenia, just to have even more stigma and closed-mindedness towards it. Not separating the two words. Not separating. It's not helpful to combine the two. People just do that so that it's more encrypting for the people that it applies to. They can't make it out of that. It's harder for people to rise above schizophrenia when they attach paranoid to it, because that's just making it more confusing and undefinable. And when it's more undefinable, you get more anxiety. Like, if you don't understand something, that is like one of the root causes of anxiety, is just like not understanding and feeling like you're less in comparison to another person. Anxiety. But like I'm saying, when you can't figure out the problem, that gives you anxiety. And it's definitely going to give people more anxiety to attach paranoid to schizophrenic, because those two things are like completely different. Being paranoid, like being worried about people around you irrationally or whatever, like being too overthinking things or whatever, is different from having 100 personalities, obviously. It's just that somebody combined the two to make it more difficult for people for whom schizophrenia applies to them, or people for whom paranoia applies to them. Now that you've combined the two, it's just like you're more likely, there's a higher percentage chance you're going to get stuck with that identity. You're not going to be able to escape from it. They do the same thing with ADD when they add the word hyperactive. It's like throwing a confusing word to make it more difficult for the people whom it applies to rise above it. And it's similar to, like, they keep adding letters to the LGBTQ. It's like, it's similar to that. It's not exactly the same. I'm saying this schizophrenia should be celebrated. But I was on stage recently, and I will make jokes about, like, I'm going to kill myself. And a few comedians do make jokes about I will kill myself in Columbus. And I made the joke that I did was, like, I tell a bad joke, and then after that I tell the audience, like, I'm gonna kill myself for saying this joke, like a purposely bad joke. Then I'm like, I'm gonna kill myself. And people laughed at it, like, every time I said it, like, for 4 times or so. Probably 4 or 5 times I said that, everybody laughed. And then one time I went up and I said, I'm gonna kill myself, and nobody laughed. And I wasn't prepared for that, because that room just made it serious. Like, oh, they made it this sad thing. Like, oh, the guy on stage is, like, telling us that he's sad about this mental illness he suffers from, or whatever. They made it real. And that's just scary. But it's like, now I'm facing a room full of people that actually want me to kill myself, or like they're making the narrative that, like, I actually want to, or like you're making it real. It was surreal. It was cray. It was cray cray. I don't know why I said it like that. Oh, but it was cray cray when I said I'm gonna kill myself and nobody laughed at it. I'm like, I'm joking. I don't. What, now you guys actually want me dead? Now I'm in front of a room full of people that are just like, yeah. One girl went, oh. And if that happens again, I will attack her. I will attack that person that says that to me ever again. Because I say I'm gonna kill myself, that should be celebrated. It's just, that's the problem with mental illness. People only make it this negative thing. You couldn't talk about, like, you're not supposed to talk about suicide in anything other than, like, oh, this is the saddest thing, and people for whom it applies, let's make it really sad for them because they're going through something that, like, making it more isolating for the person. That's what you do by talking about it in these sad terms, or even, like, we need to pray. Praying is kind of drastic. Like, I'm gonna pray for you. Why? I'm not going through anything too much more, really, any more tumultuous than the next person. Like, don't make it like I'm about to die. That's a little dramatic. You don't need to pray for me. Another word that I want to bring doctors and whatever it is. It's just that religious people want a world where it's singular identities. They want it simplistic. They want it to be one thing, one truth. They want but that's the life they're living when they're reducing their life to a single identity, like Christian or Jew or Muslim person. If you are like, this religion is who I am, you're reducing your identity to a single word, to a single personal pronoun that you're asking other people to call you. And it's kind of gay to try to get the rest of the world to call you one thing the same way that gay people do. It's gay when other people treat you like you're one identity. Like when you're the doctor and everybody's like, you're a doctor. That's what you are, because we know that that's your title, that's your working thing. Like, it's gay when people around you try to reduce you to a single identity when you are so many of them. And the truth is so relative. But it's even gayer when you try to get everybody in the world. You're like, everybody in the world should call me this one thing. That's even gayer, because it's what gay people do. Christians, or whoever it is, or Jews, they're like, this is our, they want it to be one identity. They do. Yes. But it's like, that's the authoritarian world. We shouldn't be reducing people to one identity. But it's just like lots of identities. If people were given the right to be very many identities, things would just be more uncontrollable. But what I want to say is, like, I'm troubled. That's an identity I have at work. I've taken that identity more than once. You can take it too. That's an acceptable workplace identity. Troubled. You're like a troubled guy or whatever. It's not the best one, because then you get violations within your workplace or whatever. It's like, obviously not something I'm doing on purpose, but it's like, that's not who I am. You wouldn't, that's just a guy that you are at work. But people expect you a lot of times you have to tie your identity to some emotion, because the only identity I am is my name. My name is Matthew Connor. And I know that that's part of my knowledge. That's part of my knowledge bank. Right up here, got it all up here, you know. Yep, I'm like a book, like reading a book, like I knew it I knew that one like the back of my hand. No, I just spit that one out. I was like, I knew that. Boom. It's like, what's your name, Matt? That's what I tell people. What's your middle name? Jordan. Now I'm giving away too much information. What's your social security? Here it is. 444346149. Is it real? Go ahead. Try to steal my identity. Just check it out. Try it out. See what happens. My name is the only identity I am. If you wanted to, if the world was really like being serious about this single identity thing, which they are, they do have to take it seriously because so many religions advocate for it. Just religions, the biblical narrative is still like the official narrative over evolution generally. I would say because Christ runs all of time. All of time is history. History is Christ's history. I do firmly believe that. It's just a coincidence of epic proportions that every event that's ever been recorded is on the timeline of a single guy, and the word history means his story. It means the story of a single guy. And the single guy, and it just so happens there is one guy that we're talking about the entire time. Every war, every battle began and ended on the timeline of one man. And that's what Christians made it. They made it one, they gave time a single identity. And that's not right. And it's not right because it's not true. It's just that you have to go into relative truth and say that truth isn't one thing in order to start accepting like time isn't true. But like religions own the power of narrative, and the biggest religions are all like, we took all of these people, like 1.3 billion adherents to our religion, and we smoothed it all over so that they're one identity, part of one, they all have one belief, they all have one narrative. We simplified it across millions of people, like the way that traffic works or something. Like somehow the miracle of traffic is that, yeah, a few people get into accidents or whatever, but it's like how everybody works together and like most of the time you don't die. How does that work? It shouldn't, in a world full of like narcissists and how much people say that the world is shitty or whatever. Somehow traffic, like we all operate like one human body where it's just like, yeah, of course we stop at the stop. Like people are good at weaving in traffic through each other without hitting. And that's just like this overarching giant system somehow that arose naturally, like as if we're all just one human body. But like religions do that. They are like, they make it communist in lieu of individuality. They like smooth out all the individuality. People should have their own moral systems, you would think, but it's like it should be difficult to work out that many differences. But like a religion is able to make this giant communist system, and religions are communist. Because they made everybody uniform, and so it's very socialist. Whatever, all of Christians are socialists, but the fight is among primitivity and not primitivity, but Protestants are progressive. I almost to the point that I want to use the word progressive interchangeably with the word Protestant, but Protestants are actively protesting their origins, whether it be evolution, like our primitive origins. They're in protest of them. They don't even buy it. They're like, no, we're in protest of that. And also Protestants are in protest of their individual, or the origins of their individual stories. Protestants are in protest of who they used to be, because born again is a distinctly Protestant idea, like distinct over Catholicism. I do solemnly swear, I do believe born again is Protestant, but it's like, you're born again, you're protesting who you were born as to begin with. You're like, that's not really who I am, that's not real. And you're like, Protestants are always in protest of their origins, but like on a grander scale, all the objectively the Protestant church they're in protest of the Catholic Church. That's what they were. That's what they began as. They were created to protest what the Catholic Church was doing. And they do. They separate themselves in that way by protesting. The protesting is what started it, that the Protestants made themselves separate from Catholics. But they're protesting the origins of Christianity as well. They're protesting Christian origins. They're protesting our primitive carnal origins of the flesh, just at a wide scale, like evolution versus creation. And they're Protestants are in protest, but they're the people of the future. They're the future of Christianity. They also, because they're like the progressives, because they're the later of the two. Catholicism gave birth to Protestantism, and because Protestantism came after, but they're the future people, not just because they are the later of the two, but they act that way. They want it to be that way. Protestant Christians are the ones that are really concerned with relevance and being current and changing their story when things go south, or they need when the world shifts. Protestants shift immediately alongside the world. They're because they're always current. And they've basically gotten the general public to call them Christians, even though when people say Christian, they mean Protestant Christians. Like, somehow Protestant Christians have made it that a good percentage of the general public thinks they say Christian, they mean the Protestants, just to distinguish them from Catholics. They would be like, the Catholics are Catholics, but Protestant Christians are Christians, you know. That's just because of that's just because Protestant Christians are progressives. And they're like in the future, they're now, whatever. So they're the ones, they're an organization called Christianity Today. And it's not a Catholic organization, it's a Protestant one. Because the Protestants have authority over Christianity as it happens today. And they're progressives. And I do believe that, to the point that, like, whatever is the prevailing political ideology popularly, whatever is the popular prevailing political ideology, that's what Christians are going to go with. It's not really, I believe. I think the question is, like, are conservatives Christians? Because that's the stereotype. I think that there's a lot in both. It's just like, I mean, I don't exactly get it, but Protestants act progressively, but they maybe just for appearances. That's not what they actually feel. It's a fight between primitivity, but like the Freemasons say that good and evil are the same thing. And Christians say that good and evil are different from each other. And that's how it is. I have different energy today than the energy I had when I first started trying to record this. I had more energy yesterday. And today is just like, I'm just gonna get by off of my natural system of merits. Just my natural merit is what's going to carry the day. I could give you it's just one of those days where examples from my life is going to be the most interesting thing I say, probably. People want to hear examples from your life, and what the fuck do they know? Let me tell you about the word faith, the way that the Christian church uses it. Why do they use the word faith so often? The Christian church. It's because the Christian church will always be there tomorrow. You can see the crosses and the churches everywhere. The Christian church is always relevant. It's always relevant because they worship the guy who is endlessly relevant just by cheating. Like, nobody is about to make it that, like, okay, we're not on Christ's timeline anymore, so 2025 isn't going to be that, where 2025 is 2025 years after Jesus is born, and we keep counting his years because he's the only one that anybody thinks is still alive. So we're like, oh, he's still living. So when somebody lives and dies within the timeline of Jesus, then Jesus wins and you lose. And so Christians wouldn't have to give me credit as long as I'm out in the world. I think if you're not identifying with Christianity, you're just competing directly with Jesus. That applies to everybody. Doesn't matter what religion, because the world adopts Christ's timeline. They adopt that's the era. We live in the era named after Jesus. Jesus already won the game that everybody's playing in, because the era that we live in is the one defined by, apparently, by successful men. It's the patriarchy. You're never going to beat the patriarchy as long as you name time after Jesus, and the whole era is defined by, it's just people competing with Jesus. Robin Williams, whoever, Norm Macdonald, every comedian, whatever, they're trying to build their empire and it's in competition to Jesus. They all lose automatically because their timeline because they can't defeat death, and Jesus did, and we keep counting his years because we give him the credit for that. But it's a matter of credit and belief. If you're out in the world, like, if I haven't proven myself, no, Christians are not going to give me any belief or credit, because they already own credibility, or at least they think that they do. But it's just like, there's strength in numbers. They have like nearly a third of the world, like 33.1% or something like that, of people in the world are Christians, but they own the power of narrative because they're on the right side of history. The history is just Jesus's thing. They're already on the right side of history. That's what they sold their soul in order to be able to say to other people, is to be on the right side of history. But faith is something that the church utilizes as a word to tell people, like, you got to have faith. Like, that's one of their big words, is because they are able to have authority over faith that other people aren't, because life is already easy for them. They already know that the church will be here tomorrow. So it's easy to have faith when you wake up relevant. Just when the second you wake up, you're already relevant and you're already current. It's easy to have faith in something you know for certain will be around until the end of your life. And of course the church will, because look around you. I mean, in America, it's very easy to have faith, of course, and so that any pastor preaching faith is instantly proven right, because, oh, look, we're back again this next week. Like, church isn't going anywhere. Have faith. And so what am I doing trying to compete with Jesus? If I'm saying I'm not a Christian, like, I don't have to like Jesus. Why would I? In fact, I dislike him. I don't like that he won the game that everybody's playing in, and that's the game, and it's a giant competition, because it's just have a better legacy than Jesus, and then all the Christians laugh at all the people that aren't able to do it, including Robin Williams. And they'll start talking about Robin Williams harshly the second that he dies, because ultimately Christians hate the example of individuals who are like, whatever, are able to create their own narratives. And Christians will take, like, stand-up comedy has nothing to do with the Christian church, because every stand-up comedian is just like a godless degenerate, essentially, in comparison to the church, because there's somebody who's like vying for attention just for their own sake, and they're not giving their power of narrative away to some giant community. They're not choosing to be communists. So the Christian church will use everything in the world anyway, even though they don't like stand-up comedy. They're just diabolical. Christians are. They'll make it like, if Louis C.K. said something, then it happened somewhere in the history of Christ. At some point historically, Louis C.K. made this bit, and now as a result of that, nobody else, whether on stage or off stage, is able to create original ideas around the bit, because it was already said before, or whatever. Like, oh, it was already done. So you don't get to do that. So it's like, I'm talking about a thing that people do where they make it that like take all the positive energy of something and then just like make it this criticism, this negative thing. Like what Louis C.K. is on stage making people laugh with this, like he's exploiting truths that people hadn't thought about before. But it's like the second that the truth is revealed, religious people will try to they'll just naturally start taking it over. They'll just start like taking credit for it or assimilating it into their narrative. Like, my camera turned itself off because I was running out of space. How about that? And but anyway, like it's just I'm talking about giving away your, like, Christians will try to make it, not Christians, people who are being negative. Like, critical people will take the positivity of Robin Williams and then they'll make it like nobody else can be that. Like, that was the guy who was really crazy. And like, if you start to look like that, there's nothing exceptional about you because like we've seen it before or whatever. Like, there's just a lack of intelligence out there for people, for individuals. Separate one individual from another one. Separate paranoia and schizophrenia, would you? Because it's like utilize the energy of two different things, tap into the energy of two different things, because both of those tools are useful. It's the same with people. Two individuals are separate from each other. And so it's like in the world of comedy, there's just this practice of taking what comedians said and like taking this negative approach where you're like, oh, they said that already, and so anything close to it is something that this other person did. I mean, just like making it so that, oh, you sound like this comedian. And those comparisons are fine, obviously. You sound like another comedian. That's all fun and whatever. It's just that, like, recognize the medicinal value of one plant versus another plant. With some, like, the two different species of plants offer different things. There's just, like, people make it stupider when they're, like, the more that they talk up Robin Williams, you know, it's sort of like gaslighting. And so I'm doing something, using the example of Robin Williams also to do probably something similar, like almost as bad as the thing that I'm saying is bad or whatever. Like, but it's like I'm talking about, you watch movies and then you give the power of your character away to these fictional characters that Hollywood created, where it's just like, that's not a real person. Like, you give yourself away to unrealistic things if you spend all your time watching movies and TV shows. You're giving who you are away, the blame and the responsibility. You're giving responsibility away to these like fictional characters that you're spending your time with, because you have to spend your time doing something. Like, you're pretty much gaining authority in everything, in something all the time. Time is authority. It's just, and how are you spending your time? If you're watching movies, if you're watching movies all the time, you're giving the blame away to those characters on the screen. But that's like, it's what you're designed to do. I mean, if you're just saying like, if you're doing that instead of contributing your own original things or whatever, like sharing yourself, you're spending time just watching things. You're like, yourself is getting sucked away into those fictional characters. Like, that's the only thing you're expressing yourself through, if that's what you spend all of your time doing. Like, if you spend more time going out in public and making appearances, then you automatically have to be responsible for who you are and what you say, because other people are going to hold you accountable for, like, now you have to be current on your own if you're, like, at a place. And so people try to get around it by being like, well, now I have anxiety, it's so I can't show up somewhere. People just are irresponsible. They just want it to be more comfortable. And, like, anxiety gets really bad sometimes for people. Yeah, good for you. I have really bad anxiety. I mean, yeah, it's to the point that, like, you have this unexplainable, horrible problem of anxiety. I get that, you know, like, it's not a trivial thing, but it's like anxiety. Get anxiety. Get some for yourself. Get some anxiety. Take some away. But it's the same, like, the surrounding world will try to make it like comedians they'll do that for comedians as a whole. Like, comedians already did their thing, or we've already heard this before. This progressive Protestants are like, we already heard this before, and now we're on to something else because the new day dawned and it's Christ's day again, and that's the guy I'm worshiping. So, like, you have to produce something now. You have to produce something again because you're irrelevant. The world is always, like, irrelevant in comparison to Christianity, but it's like Christians are just, they're cheating. But it's like cheating, the people who win the most are people that cheat the most. They're cheating by whatever. They're doing some shit with authority. They're doing some shit with time. It's just like faux authority. They're gaining authority in one specific thing, but it's like that's a world that values identities over regular human people. And the point I was going to make, this one is less believable, but, like, so I'm saying it wouldn't matter how many podcast episodes I make. If I didn't make another one the next day, Christians are going to be like, you're incredible. You're not credible. And I do, incredible is a derogatory term. And people that, the early adopters of incredible, like, on a wide scale, like what happened maybe a decade ago, everyone started to use the word incredible. The early adopters of it are people that understand that that's like an insult, where they're like, oh, it's incredible, where it's like the rest of the people who hadn't figured that out are like, think it's a compliment. Incredible, you're not credible. But it's contractual. Words are contractual, and okay is one of the most popularly contracted words, one of the most contracted, because it's so convenient, so easy for people to consent to. It's so mid. It's so like, everybody can be okay. It really requires no effort, right? Something. It's basically like, as long as you consent to it, and that now you are that. That's as easy as it is. It's almost like saying I'm a Christian now, or whatever. Okay is an ideology, and in my opinion, a harmful one. But people ask me, if I'm okay, are you okay? It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Just don't ask me that question. Not because I have some, like, underhanded, like, vicious agenda where I'm like, I'm not making shit up when I say that, you know. Don't ask me if I'm okay. I'm saying, like, don't ask me that because I have a number of reasons for not liking that. I think it's harmful. I'm not okay. I'm never okay. The likelihood that I would be okay is very, very slim, because everything in the world besides okay is not okay. So the chance that I would end up okay is that very specific thing. Is very specific. You would ask me to be that. That's unnecessary to just, like, introduce into a conversation. It's totally controlling to try to get people on board with okay, especially when you're initiating it. Like, be okay with me. Are you okay? As it's not something that you should expect out of other people because it's improbable. It's not likely that I'm okay. And so it's not like you really shouldn't be asking me that. It's very condescending. The new one that people are saying, I deliver packages for Amazon. I do. And what happens to me a few times is somebody comes out to get the package. I don't know fucking why. Why these people can't... Why do you not just let me drop it off at your door and then take it when I'm gone? You want to have an interaction with me? I guess we could build a friendship. I don't know what the other delivery drivers do. Are they making friends with everybody on their route? People that are doing this delivery driving... yeah, and like I'm friendly with them. It's just like... Why wouldn't you wait till I was gone? So many people want to come out of the door when I'm there to see me. Like, I think there's a feature where like people can track it so they know when I'm going to arrive. But even then, wouldn't you wait till I left and then take the package so you didn't have to interact with me? Like extrovert versus introvert. Like, people really are that extroverted, I guess. They're like a chance at an interaction with somebody. But I don't know if that's it or if people are just being stupid. Or like, don't you realize that this is easier if we don't talk to each other? It's like, you don't need to complicate it. It's not like you have to come out. It's not like maybe part of me thinks like people think they owe me something. So that's why they have to come out. But if somebody comes out to take the package, I'm like, oh, I just need to take a picture of it first. And they say, you're fine. And that one makes my blood boil. And that's not an exaggeration. I have boiling blood whenever they say it. I'm like, could you step back? My blood is boiling. Like, you're overheating my blood by saying those words. Because for some reason somebody says that to me, I just want to be like, you don't know anything about me. Like, you're fine. No. My phone keeps turning itself off because I'm full on storage, even though I'm not full on storage at all. I'm basically deleting everything in my phone just to make 1 hour-long video because it registers half of my storage as calculating, and there's nothing it's tied to. It's just like the biggest category is calculating. There's nothing. It has nothing for me to delete from that area, from that category. It's not my fault. It's mostly what it is. Is it your fault more when you talk more? Yeah, it is. Responsibility. The more that you talk, the more that you contribute, is the more that you're drawing attention to yourself. But if you're like talking over other people, like X is just a big, people are talking over each other, and everybody is just talking over each other. It's like tension is that way when there's no given speaker, or when people are not. You're supposed to listen to the given speaker, but that's just a rule made by rule followers. Is that like there are people that are leaders and that can only ever be determined by authority. Authoritarianism makes it so that we determine who gets to be speaking, and it's like the doctor is the leader, like the king, over all of the fanboys that wish they were doctors, that wish they could talk about medical authorities, like the leader of a religion or something. Like, that's the leader, that's the person that gets to talk, same as pastor over a church. Like, people who want to make it about the standardized leaders, the standardized authorities, are reducing everybody to one identity. Like, everybody is made uniform in their ability to talk about medicine in comparison to doctors, because doctors have a monopoly over that authority versus all these individual fanboys that are lesser than them can't talk about medicine at all because they've been made into nobodies basically, in their ability to talk about it, because they're losing out to singular identities. And it's just like tension. This is, people want it to be a very cut and dry hierarchy of leaders, where it's like because that's law and order. And it's just like, it's a critical environment as opposed to a not critical one. The world is characteristically very critical. This is one of my speaking points. This is one of my beliefs, is that the amount that we are critical in comparison to the amount that we are positive towards people just in the world is very disproportionate. It's a critical world mostly because it's authoritarian. And that's just naturally judgment towards all the people who don't do that. Judgment towards all the people that wish they could speak about medicine, but I had a thought just now that I wanted to capture. Shit. It's leaving my brain like a dream I'm trying to remember. Just that people, like, therapists shouldn't be telling mentally ill people what mental illness is like. That doesn't make any sense. This is part of the evidence for what I'm explaining to you, is the world is completely backwards in their approach. It's just that this is what they're used to. One day will be better, and with that would come an environment that's able to be managed and run politically in a positive way, but I'm saying, like, people want to make it authoritarian, but then that really doesn't extend to everywhere. There's like a lot of holes in this plan of authoritarianism, trying to make it like the person with the authority over the identity or whatever is the only person that gets to be listened to. They're the person that should be speaking, and attention should be paid to them. And the world doesn't allow for tension. The culture of attention subsumes the culture of tension, because we're trying to discard our primitive origins, like our origins that would make it so that we're fighting all the time. The way that the world and progressives, people who are, or whoever it is, like, this doesn't have to be Christians, but people that are in protest of primitivity, or they're like, we're moving forward, we're not who we were originally. Like, even people who believe in evolution, they're like, we're moving on from that, we're getting smarter, so we don't do sex anymore, we don't fight. It's just, this is very many noises. I have a lot of different noises in my arsenal that each one of them adds different value. I can sing, I can whatever. And I can burp. I throw in a burp that adds utility, that adds value to the episode. I wish I had a burp ready that I could share with you. I could tell you like, this burp has a specific tone and it came from me and it's proprietary to me when I burp. Like, I burped and I own that burp, and it's just like part of the system. I live with some roommates now, and one of my roommates has cats, and it's got like a cat feeder, and the cat feeder is going off. So cats run down and act like cats or whatever it is. But, like, I'm saying how therapists, they don't have authority over mental illness. But yet, the world is run entirely authoritarian, where we're supposed... How does that work, then, when it comes to therapists who have no experience in the area of mental illness, because they don't have it? Why are they the ones that are granted the right to dispense knowledge and information about this area when they are the ones that have no experience over it? It's a complete bullshit lie. The therapist who doesn't have anxiety is, for some reason, the ultimate authority on anxiety. Or what have you. Paranoid, schizophrenia, multiple personalities, PTSD. We have to listen to the therapists that have these practices. Where did they come up with them? What are they? How do they know that they're right? If these are the people that are like so well that they're beyond mental illness, it's not like they create therapists off of the basis that the therapist had this problem before. Like some of them might have had it or whatever, but it's like that is not a prerequisite at all. The only people who you know have it are the people that are mentally ill, and for some reason the world has convinced them that they're supposed to go to therapy. That's not true. That's not the way that the world is run anywhere else. It's always experience. It's always, oh, the doctor, we have to listen to them. If it's mental illness, you should be listening only to people who have paranoid schizophrenia if you have that. It's also these fucking people that made it up. But it's like, the story I told you with me going on stage and like I said, I'd kill myself. This is the problem with mental illness. I mean, I guess I was saying that already. That it's like, people try to make it sad. When it's like, it's more like something that I have the ability to contribute that other people don't. If I'm suicidal, we should listen to the suicidal talk about it. But people want to make it, people are so afraid of this thing when it doesn't apply to them and they don't understand it, that they're like, oh, this is a problematic thing. How do we usher it out of society? Let's just convince them that let's just convince them they have this single identity or whatever it is. It's like, whoever has the power of narrative is always doing everything to reduce people to a single identity, to silence them and belittle them. Everybody is being reduced to judgments. Like, that's why mental illness is this thing that exists more in the corners. It's stigmatized. It's isolating for the people that have it. You're not supposed to like talk about it because it's just like relatively weirder than if you didn't, or whatever. Like, it's because it's, I mean, for whatever reason is pushed to the side. But it has to do with a world that is hell-bent on making everybody one identity, but it's complete bullshit the way that the world is run, because there is one identity that I have, it's my name, but nobody would believe me if I was like, Con all the time, my last name is Connor. I can't be like, that's not my personality, even though that is the one identity I have. That's the one that people put the least stock into. If you really wanted an authoritarian world, we would be running it off of what is your name, because that's the thing you have authority over the most, because that's the thing you did every single day. Every one of my titles is lesser in comparison to the title that is my name, because my name is the one I did every single one of those as. But nobody would give me any authority to be a con man seriously, because they'd be like, you're being crazy if you take your last name literally. This is one of the main tenets of my message. I mean, I've said a number of the main characteristics of what, like, my podcast, what I like to talk about. I mean, it's just my beliefs and my morals, and so it's really immoral. The things that I'm saying, it's very sinful, because I believe that morals should come from the individual, not from a giant group of people. But to the extent that people are listening to a giant group, they're just being unintelligent, not on purpose, but I mean, lifestyle makes it so that you're reducing things to more simplistic and single things rather than taking a large group of people saying they're all one thing. This is what I don't like, but it's just, you're being lazy to not distinguish each individual person. I know that not everybody has the means, not everybody has like a personality, not everybody's responsible. They're like me, where I can talk all the time. I can say very many things. Not everybody has the capacity for what I have the capacity for, but that's where we are. That's why it's happening. Because I have the ability to speak on it, I am manifesting my own individual morality, but my beliefs are immoral because I think that my beliefs are better than any church's. I think I'm better. I think I'm smarter than them. But attention. ADHD is the term that they're like somebody who's not operating well in this authoritarian world, this attention-driven world, where it's like the leaders are supposed to get the attention, the designated authoritative leaders, because that's how the world is supposed to run, because or there aren't any flaws in that plan, or whatever. Listen to the one leader who will make everybody below them smooth them all over into the listeners. That's the world needs attention, and so they say that word very much. I'm here to bring the word tension to the forefront because maybe that's the biggest problem. Is people don't want to embrace the tension. Like, the tension is already around you. It's already there, and everybody's like, they don't want to go into it. They would rather, but people who have ADHD are people that they're tense as opposed to, they do tension as opposed to attention, because people with ADHD are already not listening, and so they're drawing attention to themselves by being outside of the listenership hierarchy, by like not buying into it. If they can't naturally listen, they're just like narcissists, just like drawing attention to themselves. I have ADHD, basically. It's narcissistic because you aren't like, you're not making phone shut itself off again, but the people with ADHD are the ones that naturally rise above the rules because they're not paying attention, and so that just, it makes the environment tense when the environment becomes up for grabs. That's what ADD people they usher into the situation. They make it that it's a more tense environment because there's competing tension. Attention is a word that people use to make it so that all of the tension is siphoned into one person, the leader. And so it's just like, it's part of this problematic world. Everybody says attention so much more than tension. I'm just saying, like, look at how much you hear the word attention more. When tension is just as valuable, it's probably more ubiquitous. It's just like the authoritarian world makes it that you're supposed to be paying attention. And if you don't, you have a disease. Like, and so we will find a way to reduce you to an identity, even if you're one of these tension creating people. You have attention deficit disorder. You don't operate in society well. It's like people call you autistic. People call you autistic. People call me autistic. People call everybody autistic. It's like everyone got to be called autistic. That's what you do when you say that's the thing that's on a spectrum. This is like the only thing people allow themselves to accept is relatively true. Relative truth is autism. Like, we all agreed that that's on a spectrum. That there's like you're relatively autistic. So that's the problem. That's what happened. Now everybody is calling everybody autistic for anything, and it's like a pretty mean thing to call somebody. It means you're like retarded socially, like it's not something you should be saying flippantly, but it's like, of course, in this critical world, that's the thing that we're like, we have relative levels of this thing that you definitely don't want to be, or whatever. Like, we'll be intelligent in this area. But people that are tense, it's more tension. Tension is already there. But like I'm saying, we need to, as individuals, don't be afraid of the tension, and don't give in to the attention lovers. I'm just saying more tension. I'm advocating for it by bringing the word to the forefront. I'm voting for it. I'm trying to make that more popular. That's what I'm doing, really, with all of the words I bring to the forefront. All of the things I'm saying is just kind of like a vote to make it more popular. But I will be making this into a currency by making my own, tokenizing these episodes with NFTs, images I'm putting on the internet as NFTs to tokenize the episodes, just to make this podcast into a currency, because I advocate for individualized currencies, treating yourself as a nation. I am this nation, and you should have a heart of worship for the nation that I am, that I'm creating. I have my own nation, I have my own currency, and everybody should. And this sequence of words that you've heard today is original and irreproducible by anybody else. You will not hear this. Only I can create this sequence of whatever it is, and it is original. And thank you very much. I will be back again in the future. Thanks.